Well, all plants require different herbicides and pretty much and different fertilizer needs. The first thing we think about in crop rotation is peanuts, which you can only plant on a field once in 4 years or once in 3 years to keep from building up diseases that attack peanuts. So where you're going to plant peanuts, you can't plant soybeans because the soybeans are so similar, both from legumes. So you got to leave soybeans to another area. So with those two things going on, it restricts what you can rotate. But there's certain type of soil that peanuts do better in, and in those types of soil we can plant corn, but it doesn't do as well in a heavier soils. We can plant cotton and we can plant wheat. Wheat you can plant pretty much anywhere. A lot of times we have a planned rotation system. Then it rains every day for a couple of months, and you're trying to plant wheat, and you have to rethink what you're doing, and it kind of throws you out of sync with your rotation systems. But we try not to plant corn behind corn. We do sometimes because we have irrigated land. We very seldom plant cotton behind cotton anymore. Just the rotation, and one of the problems with cotton and one of the problems with soybeans is that if we have resistant pigweed here, that Roundup won't kill, and in fact I'm not sure if anything will kill it anymore. Maybe I ought to use it for biofuel or something. but to stop from having the build up of pigweed that are resistant to Roundup, we like to bring in a grass crop that we can control pigweed in, which would be like corn or wheat or even peanuts. We can control pigweed better than we can in cotton and soybeans. So it gives us a little bit larger arsenal of herbicides to work with to control the pigweeds, and just the rotation seems to help with it. Not having the same crop behind the other. People don't understand. They think that they're planting the same crop over and over poisons the land in some way. What happens is all the organisms in the soil that feed on the crop don't feed on a different crop. So the population of these parasites in the soil diminishes when the crop's not there to feed them. So all we're doing is controlling parasites by rotating. We use an entire different herbicide that still works on pigweed, and by using that we can keep the population down. One pigweed plant puts out 350,000 seed, and it's kind of hard to overcome that. I've seen crops where you couldn't harvest because of pigweed. In some parts of the country they don't have them. I'd be glad to ship some seed there if they need a new challenge, but most people really don't want the seed. But, and also in the fertility, the corn needs more phosphorus than the other plants do. Cotton needs more potash. So there's a lot of things going on there that you don't really see. Everybody tells me that read somewhere that cotton depletes all the nutrients in the soil, which there's no need now for any crop to deplete the nutrients in the soil. We have enough technology to overcome that. We've noticed in some of our neighbors' land that, particularly when our neighbors went out of business or retired, and I should say, and we started farming their land, we noticed that the production level wasn't quite as good as ours, and we also noticed that the plants didn't start off in early stages as fast as ours did. We also noticed that there wasn't a lot of winter vegetation, because a lot of these farmers never changed, and from the old days when you plowed in Treflan every year and bedded land and knocked the beds down and planted cotton and used cotton, all the conventional herbicides that they used, it controlled the winter vegetation because Treflan burns the weeds off. I think you had a buildup of some of these herbicides over a period of time, and the population of winter vegetation just wasn't there. The seed weren't there, the plants weren't there. And as we went away from those practices to what we do, we noticed that the winter vegetation is heavier and heavier every year, particularly in the better soils. Right, and it depends on the plant that was there before. Peanuts is one that, if you plant peanuts, you'll have so much winter vegetation after peanuts. I think they're feeding off the nitrogen in the peanuts that you really don't need to plant. And by not having to plant winter vegetation, of course, you save a lot of cost, and you save disturbing the soil and a lot of things that you really don't want to do. So the least number of trips, the least amount of money you will spend. Henbit is one of the ones that we find the most of, and it's kind of aggravating when it gets in wheat and all, but henbit is one that grows most everywhere that we use, particularly behind peanuts. That's the one that, and we try to kill off the winter rye, the wild ryegrass and things like that, but henbit comes back year after year, and that's the one that really covers the ground the best. We like rye. Sometimes rye seed is too scarce to find and too expensive, and sometimes we'll plant wheat, but one of those two is what we normally plant, wheat or rye. Why rye is probably the best, but sometimes the seed is just too expensive. Sometimes we'll have a bin full of wheat we can't give away, and we'll use it for a cover crop. If we're going to plant a cover crop, we don't plant as thick as we do with a wheat crop, and we don't put as much fertilizer and all as we do in a wheat crop. When we plant wheat, we go after yield, and we put a lot into it. So with a cover crop, we don't do any tillage. We just put it out there and kind of lightly chop it in, and that's all we do with it. Most of the time we broadcast it, and we have a special tool that just chops about 2 inches deep but doesn't really move the dirt, and it'll do enough to cover the crop up and chop up the residue at the same time, and it leaves it flat, and it leaves all the residue flat on the ground, and the rye will come up and does real well. Any land that has an erosion problem, whether it be wind or water erosion, and it doesn't have a lot of natural vegetation on it, and that we're going to plant a crop that we will strip till, which is not peanuts. So it would be land that we don't have wheat on it, not going to plant peanuts on it, and has erosion problems. So that's when it doesn't have natural vegetation, then we'll plant a cover crop on that land.